What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily Channel with me, Mike Zakarian, as we continue to dive into the dead season of the NBA offseason as we get ready for the Celtics to return back to camp. And then again, just like 6 weeks away from the start of the NBA regular season. So though it feels bleak and quiet right now, we are almost back to hoops. But before we dive in to some of the news of the day yesterday, we actually didn't have a ton of Celtics news, but we did have a ton of basketball news that does relate to the Celtics. But before we get into that, do me a favor. If it's your first time here, hit that subscribe. Let's get this number cooking. Let's pop it up. Appreciate everybody that's been engaging in the chat and getting involved in the comments. As always, we end the show with your comments, so keep that coming. All right, let's get into some weird news here out of Philadelphia because Kelly Oubre, all right, and actually our top two topics are gonna go together a little bit. But Kelly Oubre had a little cryptic message here out of Philly yesterday. Let me pull that up for you because it seems like he's going to be working his way out of Philadelphia, and that's because the 76ers look like they're trying to make a move to be able to keep Quentin Grimes and give him a restricted free agency offer. But here is the quote, and I love when players decide, you know how I'm going to make my point made? On Instagram. And that's what Oubre did. Oubre here said, this is in an Instagram post. I love Philly, but the love doesn't seem to be reciprocated. What happened to this place? And for those saying I'm garbage because my 3% went down, still put up numbers and I'd still cook you. I played through finger surgeries on my left hand, thumb, and pinky for 3 years, but still put my soul in this shit. That's the one thing only God can take from me. Hope to see you all soon. Godspeed. So anyways, all that to say, it seems like maybe things aren't super duper here in Philadelphia. Now, Kelly Oubre, they're in this weird spot, right? Because Oubre was really important to this team the last couple of seasons. A lot of that has to do with just the consistency in injuries with Philly, whether it's Paul George, Maxey, McCain, and Embiid all missed like serious time last year. But Oubre now, as the Sixers try to get some money together to sign Quentin Grimes, right? One of the restricted free agents who, again, these first two topics are going to go together. But I wanted to put a little something together here for Kelly Oubre because I'm curious how people feel about his game. For those unfamiliar, left-handed offensive player, doesn't do too much defensively. But right now, I believe this is his last year, right? So he's got an expiring deal. So we're talking $8 million. $8 million of an expiring contract, which is going to make him pretty intriguing for teams trying to cut costs a little bit after this season, a la the Boston Celtics. So this type of contract makes a ton of sense for Boston. Not necessarily a winning move, but financially it would make a ton of sense. That being said, though, Philly's in this weird spot. Like, as I was saying, they're trying to cut money, right? So being a second apron team as they are, there's not many moves that can be made here. So I'm curious as I put like Kelly Oubre to Boston in the little trade machine, what that would look like, because like somebody like Simons, who again we think is going to be somebody that gets moved at some point. I know, relax, we love Simons, but again, they're like the Sixers just don't have a ton of room. So Oubre for Simons isn't going to work, right? Because of the difference in money. Even like Hauser would, or Hauser for Kelly Oubre, would that one work? That one would work. So if the Celtics were trying to save a little money there, they wouldn't save too much this year. They would save $1.6 million this year, which I actually think would get them under the first apron. But next year, the Hauser contract would still be going for Philly. Oubre falls off the books here. I don't think that's a smart move. I would not do that if I were the Celtics. I think Sam Hauser, as much as I like Oubre Oubre, honestly, more of a fantasy basketball player than a good NBA player, in my opinion. But Hauser, I think you could actually get a better return from him later in the regular season, as teams are getting a little bit more desperate to find some elite three-point shooting, even though you guys are pretty mad at Sam Hauser for not being able to come through in the playoffs, to get elite three-point shooting later in the season. I think you could get a higher return. So I don't want them to do anything like that, but it is something to monitor here in Philly, because as I was saying, right, as we go into the restricted free agent part of this conversation, so we've seen some movement here. I mentioned Cam Thomas last week, signed a qualifying offer, which is just $6 million. The difference in what Cam Thomas did and what we just saw Josh Giddey do, Josh Giddey signed yesterday, 4 years, $100 million. So for you math dorks, that's $25 million a year over the next 4 years. And I think there's been like a wide range of response to that. I'm curious how the chat feels about that kind of money for Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey and his team were trying to get $30 million a year. That was their goal. The Bulls wanted to pay $20 to $22 million a year. They met in the middle. That was like really nice negotiations, okay? For those of you in a relationship and you know, whether you're going through a tough time or you're just arguing over dumb stuff, right? I want you to look at the Chicago Bulls and Josh Giddey and you just meet in the middle, all right? Somewhere in the middle. Who sings that song? Meeting in the middle. I don't know. I got nothing for you. But anyways, I thought that was good. It seems like there's a mixed reaction. I think some Bulls fans are like, why did we do this for the next 4 years? Like, couldn't we make this a smaller deal? I think other people think it's like a fair number. So I don't know if it moves the needle too much, but as we saw Giddey sign, we saw Cam Thomas sign. The Sixers here are trying to figure out what they do with Quentin Grimes. And Quentin Grimes, just a refresher here on the Grimes man. He had an insane run down the second half of the season last year because, again, I mentioned all of those injuries, right? So Quentin Grimes all of a sudden was playing like 35 minutes a game. Last season, he averaged 14, 4, and 3. But actually, instead of doing basketball reference here for Quentin Grimes, as my computer tweaks out, for those of you that have never used basketball reference, it's one of the tons of information, very helpful, resourceful site. They haven't updated it since 1995, like from the server perspective, so it is an absolute nightmare. But let's look at the last 25 games from Quentin Grimes last season, which again, like small sample size, and again, the situation, weird, but he averaged 25, 5, and 5. 25, 5, and 5. So Quentin Grimes clearly reached another level that he was unable to figure out in New York and Detroit, even in Dallas when he was down there. So to see him get that run was pretty fun. And now you're seeing Philly have to decide, are they going to pay this guy? And like, what kind of money is it? Honestly, it probably should be somewhere in the middle of where Giddey and Cam Thomas are. I don't know, like 15 million a year, 17 million a year, something like that. But this is just to illustrate again, like these tough situations these teams are in financially, and how do you pay these guys? Where do you cut corners? Philly, on the other hand, too, they reports that like Joel Embiid was back in the building working out, so maybe Embiid will be ready at opening night. And you're like, why are we talking about Philly so much? Well, one, the Celtics have been quiet this week, but two, they play Philly opening night, so there we go. I've made the connection. But yeah, in the other restricted free agents news, the Jonathan Kuminga situation in Golden State continues to drag on and has been a straight-up nightmare. You know who it's a nightmare for? Al Horford and D'Anthony Melton to a lesser extent. But Al Horford, from all accounts, is just waiting to sign with Golden State. Golden State, who I believe has yet to make an actual move this entire NBA offseason. We are now, not a midway, but we're in double digits in September, all right? It's September 10th. They have yet to make a move, and this is from Monty Poole of the NBC San Francisco. He said Kuminga signing the qualifying offer remains the anticipated outcome. The deadline to do so is October 1st, so just a couple weeks away. Meanwhile, Al Horford and the rest of the veterans in Golden State's room are quietly pleading for clarity. The one thing I want to say, and I will relate this to the Celtics free agency, front office. I am grateful that we are run by Brad Stevens and just like a competent Celtics front office. And you might not agree with every single contract. I know some of you were nitpicking over Jaylen Brown's money. The deals we gave Drew and Porzingis 2 years ago put us in this situation this offseason. I get it. That's fine. At least we're not doing stuff like this. Like, this is crazy. Jonathan Kuminga, they like would not play. Then they would not trade, right? They won't like give a deal. They're just kind of keeping this guy in no man's land. And this qualifying offer, like, I don't know exactly what the number is going to look like. But again, we saw what Cam Thomas was $6 million. I imagine it's a little bit more than that. And then it's like Kuminga now has to go play for his next contract. But Steve Kerr and like the coaching staff clearly don't trust Kuminga to play like winning basketball. The only time Kuminga gets thrown in there to play like a real run of stuff is if there's an injury or if the game's over, right? We're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. He's going to have to play behind Jimmy Butler now. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But this, anyways, is slowing down like where Al Horford can go. And I imagine Al, at this point in his career, probably doesn't want to be this late into the offseason not having a clue of where he's going to go. And I'm sure Golden State gave him a wink and a nod, being like, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be here." But now, like, the money's getting tighter of what's available for Golden State. And now is Al going to have to be doing a cheaper deal? I imagine he's going to sign some sort of 2-year deal, right? It'll be a 1 and a 1, like 1 year guaranteed, 1 year player option, I imagine. Maybe it's a team option, but I think it's a player option. maybe for like $11 million a year, something like that. And I do think Al makes sense in Golden State. And I know he's gotten to the point where he's a little bit long, long in the tooth age-wise, but I still think if Allen has a limited role, he can play winning basketball. Like we saw it. I thought he was fine. I thought he was fine in the postseason. You don't want him playing 82 games. You don't want him playing 30 minutes a game on back-to-back nights or anything like that. But, if you're like every other day type situation for, 25 minutes, I think it's fine. I think it's fine, especially if he doesn't have to start. Although, who knows? Who knows what the Warriors will do? And the Warriors must start feeling desperate, man, because their core is getting older and the time's running out. The younger teams ahead of them are getting better. Like, yeah, sure, you still got Steph Curry, but man, Houston got better. Denver got better. OKC got all those guys got paid, and they're all in their like early 20s. Like every team around them got better, so they're going to be in a tough situation there. But still something to monitor as these restricted free agents get signed. It now is teams are going to have a clearer picture of what their rosters are going to look like moving forward. And as I mentioned, like the Celtics are still going to make one move here, whether it's in September and October or it's not till later into the offseason. Later into the regular season. That's still to be seen. But just wanted to give an update on that. One other note that I saw there, and I think this was actually from the Boston Celtics Twitter account yesterday. Yeah, it was from the Boston Celtics Twitter account. I feel like Tatum and Brown, like everybody knows they're good, but I don't think they like to put them in the same category as like the great players. And that was indicative of the Locked On's top 100 yesterday that we went over, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into your comments, right? But they had Tatum 10th overall. They had dudes like Brunson and Mitchell ahead of him. Anthony Edwards too, like all of those guys ahead of him, and like Jaylen Brown again. Yeah, everybody is crapping on him all the time. They're like, "Oh, he can't jump his left hand. He turns the ball over all the time. Whatever." This is a nutso, and also they are an NBA champion duo, okay? And like you can't take that away. There's no asterisk you put on it. Although shout out Tom Haberstra who says every team has an asterisk. There's no asterisk on it. They went out there, they beat everybody in front of them. You could say the East sucked, whatever. You could say, oh, they got lucky, they played Dallas in the finals. They can't. It's not like they decided who they were playing. They beat everybody in front of them. They beat them handily from start to finish, wire to wire. They spanked everybody, all right? We also haven't seen a repeat NBA champion since the Golden State Warriors either, right? So it's not like there's been some core group of guys that have just been winning over and over and over again. It's been a smorgasbord of NBA champions. Ready for this stat? Most playoff wins since 2018, all right? Milwaukee Bucks, they have 45. So as an organization, the Bucks have 45 playoff wins since 2018. That's with Giannis Antetokounmpo, mind you, all right? A player, second, third best player in the league right now. The Denver Nuggets, with the best player in the league, they have 51. Nikola Jokic, 51. Second in most playoff wins since 2018. The aforementioned Golden State Warriors with 57. Then you have to jump up 15 games because JT and JB and the Boston Celtics since 2018 have won 72 playoff games. 72. Now, maybe that number gets a little bit tighter after this NBA offseason, but come on. That's incredible. That's incredible. The consistency in which they have put themselves in situations to get close to titles, right? A runner-up finish, an NBA title, a bunch of Eastern Conference finalists, like, I don't know why. I think as a society, we don't like giving people credit anymore. And I don't know. We should need a BetterHelp promo code right here because everybody just go to therapy. Like it's okay to be like, hey, these guys are pretty good. 72 as a team since 2018. And would I have liked there to have been a couple more titles in there? Yeah, of course. But we got one. We should be happy about that. All right, let's get into some of your comments from yesterday, which is a reminder. Get involved in the comments. Hit the subscribe if you haven't done so so far. I'm going to hit a few of them here, and then we will wrap up on this dreary East Coast day here. But appreciate everybody tuning in. All right, let's go. AJB03 says, I rank Jason Tatum higher than Luka. This is about yesterday's video where we did the top 100. They had Luka 4th, I believe. Now, Luka's a special offensive talent, but Tatum's defense makes up for whatever offensive gap there is. Where do you rank, and then pause, not the pause, but you know what I mean, period. Where do you rank Jaylen Brown now, and where do you think he will rank at the end of the season? I think that's fun. I think, to me personally, I have Jaylen Brown in normal circumstances, like fringe third all NBA guy, which means so all third team all NBA means top 15, right? I have him somewhere between like 14 and 20, right? 14, 22. I think it's a deep league right now, and depending on the situation, I love JB. So I got him somewhere or in that range. With no Tatum, though, if this Celtics team really does ball out, I mean, I think he could be fringe top 10. I do. I think, like, again, his numbers with no Jason Tatum are like 27, 7, and 3 or something like that. Or 27, yeah, 27, 7, and 3. If he's going to do, I mean, that's like, no, it's not LeBron numbers. He was 27, 7, and 7. But that's going to put him up there in like top 10 in scoring, most likely. And if the Celtics are competitive, like you're going to have to put him in that category. So that's where I'd put him. Also, you went on to say, also, is there a scenario where Kata makes it possible for the owners to consider paying Sam or Simons? Yeah, so well, Sam Hauser's already under contract. We don't have to worry about that. That's the reason he might have more trade value than Anthony Simons, is because if a team trades for Sam Hauser, they get him for the next couple of years. Simons, you're only getting for the end of this season, and then you have to decide if you're going to pay him or not. But yeah, I do think so. If Kata ends up showing that he can be their starting five, like a legit starting five, I do think there's a world in which they don't have to use money to go get a center, right? And then you can decide based on like what Hugo shows you this year, what Jordan Walsh, what Baylor Shireman, what those young guys show you. Then you kind of identify, all right, where do we need to spend our money? What parts of our roster do we need to beef up a little bit? And so maybe that does mean Simons comes back, depending on how he plays this year and the relationship he has with the Celtics. I'll tell you what, though. Simon's right now making $27 million a year. The Celtics aren't going to be able to pay him that. So if that's the kind of money he's looking for, I don't think he's long for Boston. Let me get to some of your other stuff. Our guy Vicky in the chat said Tatum at 10 is absolutely bonkers. I totally agree with this. Let's see what else we have. We got a lot of people making fun of Ben Simmons, which I'm here for that. And then James Marshall saying, I'm not sure if you'd have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander number 2, but maybe top 5. That's how I feel about the top 5 in general. To me, Nikola Jokic is the clear number 1 player in the league. And then I think there's like a tier of Shea, Luka, Giannis, and then depending on how you feel about Tatum right there. I think they're all kind of bumped up together. I don't if you have Luka 2 or 5, I hear you. Shea, same thing. I'm totally fine with all of those. But those are your comments from yesterday. Oh, one more. Samuel Henry says, trade Simons and Hauser and Tillman and get under the luxury tax. Listen, I don't know if Tillman is going to move the needle for anybody. I'm not sure anybody's lining up for Xavier Tillman right now. I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself into maybe Xavier Tillman as a bounce back year this year. A lot of off the court stuff going on. I think he's back. He's focused. I think we're going to get a good year from Tillman, the X-Man. We're going to be doing a lot of this. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Appreciate everybody hanging in as we're in the doldrums of the NBA offseason. We are really, really combing the internet to try to get stuff to talk about with you every day, but we are so close to getting some real information, some real news, and some hot Celtics goss as we get closer to the start of the season. So hit the subscribe, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, y'all.